Ahead of the transition of power in the U.S., speculation is rife that a second Trump administration is likely focused on hiring loyalists. President-elect Trump and President Biden will meet on Wednesday. Here in Seoul, the government is thoroughly preparing for the new administration in Washington, for which President Yoon Suk-yeol held a meeting over the weekend to check response measures on the economy and security. The first round of talks began today involving lawmakers, the medical community, and the government to resolve prolonged conflict over medical reform. They pledged to yield tangible results by next month, while the opposition party and some key medical groups did not join the talks. It's November 11th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. With a second Trump presidency drawing near in the U.S., speculation is rife who will be joining or leaving key posts, amid watchers suggesting that the president-elect is likely focused on hiring loyalists. Choi Min-jung has the latest.
The U.S. is underway with its transition to the Trump administration. The big question is whether President-elect Donald Trump will follow through with his threat to fire the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Trump has repeatedly threatened to fire Powell, and Powell himself responded last week, insisting he will not resign. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, one of Trump's closest aides, endorsed allowing presidents to intervene in Federal Reserve policy. Trump has been stressing that he should have the power to influence the setting of interest rates as president. Meanwhile, Trump announced the appointment of another high-ranking official to his team. On social media on Sunday, the president-elect tapped Tom Homan as his border czar. The former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement will be in charge of the country's borders, including all maritime and aviation security, as well as the deportation of illegal immigrants. Homan served during Trump's first term for a year and a half. On Wednesday, Trump is expected to meet with President Joe Biden in the Oval Office.
I'm going to see him on Wednesday.
The customary meeting between the incumbent and incoming president marks the start of the transfer of power. Eyes are on which other handful of loyalists will make up Trump's new team and play key roles across the government ahead of his return to the White House in January. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Against this backdrop, President Yoon and top office officials have gathered to address the possible impact of a second Trump administration on bilateral trade and regional security. Woo Soo-young reports.
Preparing for the return of Donald Trump to the White House next year, South Korea's top office will launch an economic council and swiftly engage with the incoming Trump administration to cooperate on pressing bilateral issues. On Sunday, President Yoon Suk-yeol convened his top policy aides to review South Korea's economic and security situation amid external changes.
미국 대선이 끝났고 2달 후면은 새 행정부가 출범합니다. 워싱턴에 새 행정부가 출범을 하고 또 새로운 정책 기조가 정해지면 세계 경제와 안보에 상당히 많은 변화가 있게 됩니다. 이에 따라서 우리 경제와 안보에도 직간접으로 많은 영향을 미치게 되는 만큼 여러 가지 치밀한 준비가 필요합니다.
To brace for the economic impact, Yoon first called for an immediate launch of a consultative body on finance, trade and industry, headed by the Deputy Prime Minister. During his campaign, President-elect Trump pledged to slap tariffs of more than 60% on Chinese goods and 10 to 20% on imports from countries other than China to encourage production in America. Based on its analysis of Trump's campaign pledges, Yoon's office says it is considering all possibilities. A senior official told reporters that if the US imposes general tariffs, it could weaken the competitiveness of US products. However, depending on the scope of the tariffs, there could also be opportunities to collaborate with Seoul.
U.S. officials and Congress are well aware that South Korean firms contribute significantly to the revival of American manufacturing and job creation through large-scale investment. We believe they will recognize it is important for our firms to operate smoothly in the U.S. market.
He said the government will also work with the private sector to identify US interests and corporate needs in industries like shipbuilding. In a phone call last week with President Yoon, President-elect Trump first raised the need for cooperation with South Korea in the shipbuilding sector. South Korea also intends to engage with incoming Trump officials to align Seoul and Washington's policies on diplomacy and security, according to Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho.
Through the South Korea-US alliance, we can strengthen deterrence against North Korea while navigating global geopolitical and geo-economic competition together. By deepening defense and defense industry cooperation and creating synergies in advanced industries and technology, we aim to expand our leadership to promote peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region.
Kim said Seoul will also continue to deepen the allies' trilateral cooperation with Japan to deter North Korea and jointly tackle regional security and economic challenges. Amid concerns over the president-elect's push for South Korea to pay more for American boots on the ground, an official told reporters South Korea will explain that their deals on defense cost sharing have always served their mutual benefit. Seoul covered 90% of the costs of building Camp Humphreys, America's largest base overseas. On whether South Korea would seek its own nuclear deterrent to build leverage, the official said Seoul is focusing on alliance-based deterrence with Washington, and an independent nuclear weapon is a matter of consideration in only extreme scenarios. Going forward, Yoon's office plans to launch a security economic cooperation program that enhances the strengths and competitiveness of both countries in supply chains, advanced technology and future industries, so that South Korean and US citizens and firms can benefit from more jobs and opportunities. Usiang, Arirang News.
In the meantime, Bitcoin hit record highs on the back of Trump's decisive election victory. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us what the future of this market may look like.
Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, soared to new highs following Donald Trump's U.S. presidential election victory. After surpassing $75,000 on the results of the U.S. presidential election last week, Bitcoin continued to soar over the weekend, reaching yet another all-time high. On Sunday morning, according to cryptocurrency exchange platform Coinbase, Bitcoin surpassed $80,000 for the first time before soaring to yet another record high by topping $81,000 in the afternoon. The price of Bitcoin as well as the cryptocurrency market as a whole has been on the rise as the president-elect promised to ease regulations on virtual currencies during his campaign, a shift from his previous stance.
He was initially negative about cryptocurrency due to his lack of personal experience with it, but after issuing NFTs and becoming more involved, he began to see its significant potential as an asset.
During his campaign trail, Trump pledged to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet, saying that he would appoint regulators more supportive of the digital asset industry. One of the first actions as president that he vowed to take was to fire the current chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, who has been openly wary and skeptical about cryptocurrencies. And the bullish trend in the wake of Trump's win has been extended to smaller coins such as Dogecoin, which is considered to be a meme coin and a favorite of Trump supporter Elon Musk.
As it's already known, Elon Musk owns significant amounts of crypto, including Dogecoin, and whatever he says often impacts their prices, so the news of Trump and Musk working together is enough to send a positive signal to the crypto industry.
He added that while digital assets like Bitcoin tend to be volatile, the likelihood of the Trump administration embracing cryptocurrencies indicates that there will be an upward trend in prices for the time being. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
A high-level delegation from the Czech Republic arrived in South Korea to finalize negotiations for the construction of 2 new nuclear reactors at the Dukovany nuclear power plant. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power was selected as the preferred bidder for the multi-billion-dollar project. And during the 2-week trip starting Monday, the Czech delegation will visit nuclear power plants and manufacturing facilities in Korea. The visit comes following complaints filed by France's EDF and Westinghouse from the United States with Czech antitrust authorities. Despite these challenges, both parties stated that they remain committed to finalizing the contract by March 2025. In other news, the medical community, lawmakers, and government officials have launched their first joint platform to address the prolonged standoff over medical school admissions. The opposition party and some key medical groups, however, were absent. Kim Do-yeon explains.
A potential turning point in the ongoing standoff between the government and doctors. On Monday, the ruling People Power Party, some medical associations, and the government kicked off a consultative body at the National Assembly pledging to yield results by the end of the year.
Despite the conflict and deadlock, we believe we've finally found a breakthrough. For the first time since the medical crisis began, the government and the medical community have come together in front of the public to resolve the issue. It's a delayed but significant step forward.
But the group faces hurdles as it's missing key pieces. The opposition parties did not join as some key medical organizations opted out of the initiative. The key medical organizations, Korea Interns and Residents Association and the Korea Medical Association, won't join unless the government starts a medical reform plan from scratch, including canceling the medical school enrollment quota expansion, which has already been set for the upcoming application season. People Power Party Chair Han Do-hoon called on them to start the discussion first.
The Korean Academy of Medical Sciences and KAMC, which oversee the training and education of medical residents and students, are taking the lead in gathering and addressing the medical community's demands through open communication and the consultative body. With broader participation from the medical field, we believe more effective and swift agreements can be reached.
The medical associations that did join the group said it was only due to the urgency of the situation from the current halt in medical education and the strain on the medical infrastructure.
If the government and ruling party fail to show genuine commitment, the conflict will never be resolved. This time, we hope they approach the situation with a sense of urgency and a true willingness to find a solution.
Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said the medical reform isn't just about raising the medical school student quota. It's also about improving the working conditions for doctors in the country.
The government's medical reform is a comprehensive strategy aimed at transforming the foundation and paradigm of our medical system. It reflects the government's commitment to protecting the public and building a sustainable, high-quality healthcare system.
Meanwhile, the group is set to meet twice a week. The key issue at hand is the return of interns and residents across the nation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Japan's parliament has re-elected Shigeru Ishiba as the country's prime minister. According to Kyodo News, Ishiba was formally re-elected on Monday in the first runoff vote in 3 decades to select a new prime minister. Ishiba, the head of the Liberal Democratic Party, defeated his rival Yoshihiko Noda, leader of the main opposition Constitutional Democratic Party, 221 to 160. The re-election comes after Ishiba's governing coalition lost the majority in the lower house last month. On Monday, a special parliamentary session was convened to pick a new leader in a vote required within a month of a general election. The 29th UN Climate Summit begins today in Azerbaijan with broad discussions amid uncertainty over the fate of climate action by the U.S. under a second Trump administration. Our foreign affairs correspondent Pei Eun-ji has this report.
This year, 2024, is on track to be the hottest on record. It could also be the first year to exceed the Paris Agreement threshold, which aims to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius.
15 of the past 16 months have broken temperature records. And today, the World Meteorological Organization and partners tell us that 2024 is on track to be the hottest year ever recorded, almost 2 months before it ends.
To address climate change, officials from almost 200 countries have gathered in Azerbaijan to take part in the United Nations Annual Climate Summit, the COP29. From South Korea, a delegation led by the Minister of Environment, Kim Won-suk, will take part. The climate talks come as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, a so-called climate denier, is set to return to the White House. The New York Times said Trump is preparing to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. He earlier pulled the United States out of the deal during his first term, before Biden rejoined the agreement.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, so we're getting out. But we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine.
This year's climate meeting is expected to be focused on how much financial support should be given annually to help developing countries cope with climate-related costs. During a COP summit in 2010, developed countries agreed to mobilize $100 billion per year by 2020. But countries failed to meet the goal on time, and in 2015, the goal was extended until 2025. However, with the possibility of the U.S. withdrawing from the Paris Agreement again, there are a lot of uncertainties and concerns remaining on this issue.
With this election result, we really get very concerned that all the talks are now going to be what will happen in the absence of the U.S. and the U.S. not meeting its finance goal or even reversing some of the mitigation policies that Biden administration brought. That is going to be at the heart of the conversation at COP29.
The COP29 is scheduled to take place until November 22nd, and all eyes are now on whether countries will be able to agree on a new global climate finance target for 2025 and onwards. Peunji, Arirang News.
Today, November 11th, marks the International Memorial Day for UN Korean War veterans. An annual commemorative event took place at the UN cemetery in Korea's city of Busan, and our correspondent Kim Bo-kyo was at the site.
A moment of silence at the UN Memorial Cemetery in Korea. This to honor fallen veterans who fought in the Korean War under one United Nations flag. Around 1.98 million personnel from 22 countries were dispatched to fight for freedom. And the only UN cemetery in the world, located in Korea's port city of Busan, became home to more than 2,300 fallen veterans from 13 countries. Proposed in 2007 by a Canadian veteran, November 11th was designated as the International Memorial Day for UN Korean War veterans, and to have a moment of silence toward the cemetery in Busan. This year, marking the 18th edition of the commemorative event, brought together veterans and their families to remember not just the history, but what was left for the future.
They did not fight and many times die for a place in history. They fought for something greater than themselves, a vision that is now our reality, one of shared freedom and democratic values. We owe them everything.
Veterans who came back to Korea to celebrate the day shared their stories, and one told Arirang News how surprised he was to see how Korea has changed since then.
All that time I fought, and I was lucky. I get hurt several times, you know, but I came home. I came home. Beautiful city. When I left here, it wasn't like that.
Prior to the ceremony, a burial service was held for an unidentified UN veteran whose remains were discovered in Yeoncheon-gun County, Gyeonggi-do Province. Believed to be a European male aged between 17 and 25, this marked the first post-armistice burial of an unidentified UN soldier at the cemetery.
Laying to rest an unknown veteran with full honors reflects South Korea's promise to never forget and to honor the UN veterans who fought and sacrificed their lives anonymously for the Republic of Korea until the very end.
By commemorating the UN veterans who fought and fell to defend the Republic of Korea, their sacrifice and the legacy lives on from generation to generation. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
Let's start with football. Plenty of goals for some Korean stars based in Europe over the weekend.
Yes, indeed, including Lee Gang-in, who scored 2 for Paris Saint-Germain. On Sunday, in PSG's 4-2 away win over Angers, Lee Gang-in scored a quick-fire brace with goals on 17 and 20 minutes. Operating from the right-hand side of a front three, Yi fired in from around 12 yards out to make it 1-0 before burying a first-time finish from just over 6 yards out to make it 2-0. PSG sit top of the league, 6 points clear of Monaco. As for Yi, he now has 6 goals in 11 league matches this season. Over in the Netherlands, Hwang In-bom scored a diving header 3 minutes into Feyenoord's 4-1 win over Almere on Sunday, making it 1-0. It was his second goal since moving to the club this summer. And in Germany, Lee Jae-sung scored the opening goal in Mainz's 3-1 win at home over Borussia Dortmund. It was his second of the season. All 3 are in the South Korea squad for the forthcoming World Cup qualifiers with a Kuwait and a Palestine.
And staying with football, it was a dramatic weekend in K-League.
It was, and it ended with the relegation of Incheon United from K-League 1. Incheon on Sunday lost 2-1 at home to Daejeon Hana Citizen. This, coupled with Jeonbuk's 3-1 win over Daegu, meant that Incheon will play next season in the second tier, suffering relegation for the first time in the club's 21-year history. But the win for Daejeon, thanks to goals from Ishida Masatoshi and Anton Krivotsiuk, means safety has been secured. But 9-time K-League 1 champions Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors will have to go through the indignity of the relegation playoffs, so too Daegu FC. The final weekend's matches in a fortnight's time will determine which K-League 2 teams they will face. Jeonbuk play Gwangju away, Daegu are at home to Incheon.
All right, and moving on to golf now. A second LPGA win for Kim Ah-rim.
Yes, Kim won the Lotte Championship in Hawaii on Saturday. It is her first LPGA win since the 2020 US Open. Kim shot a final round 4 under par 68 and finished at 18 under 270 overall, 2 strokes ahead of Russia's Natalia Guseva. She took home $450,000 in prize money and became the 3rd South Korean to win on the tour this year, joining Amy Yang and Yoo Hae-ran. The win also means she is expected to move into the top 25 in the CME Globe standings, which would secure a spot in the season finale, the CME Group Tour Championship, which begins on November 21st.
And finally to baseball, just 2 days to go until South Korea start their Premier 12 journey.
Yes, that's right. Korea's first game is on Wednesday against Taiwan. That one gets underway at 7:30 p.m. local time or 8:30 p.m. here in Korea. Manager of the team, Yoo Jung-il, has taken a young squad with him. Only 4 of the 28-man roster are over 30 and 18 players are aged 25 or younger. 21-year-old Kim Do-young, who won the Korean series with the Kia Tigers this year, is perhaps the biggest name among the young members of this team. Doosan Bears closer Kim Tae-yeon is the youngest at 19. This is the 3rd edition of the Premier 12. Korea won the first in 2015, but then lost to Japan in the final in 2019.
All right, Paul, thanks for the wrap-up.
Thank you.
In Seoul, warm sunshine with clear skies without a single cloud today. The temperature rose to 21 degrees Celsius, so it was mild. For the rest of the week, the weather will continue to be milder than usual, but with large daily temperature differences. From tonight, the atmosphere will stagnate and smoke will gradually flow in. The Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheongdo provinces, and Jeollabuk-do province will have bad levels of ultrafine dust concentration throughout the day tomorrow. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 11 degrees, Gwangju and Daegu 10 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 18 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Daejeon and Gwangju 19 degrees. On Thursday, the day of the National College Entrance Exam, there will be no cold wave like there was last year, but it is expected to rain starting in the northwestern parts of the country in the afternoon. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.